Thing 1. Thing 2. Here we go. Chillest edition yet. Hello and welcome to the Annie Altman Show, the podcast, Season 5. Welcome to the second episode in the Change series. I'm here today with Rabbi Rachel Short.
Hello.
We are sitting out on the porch, enjoying the weather, enjoying tea, enjoying being two short Jews talking about change. Yeah? Okay, cool. Yeah, we're taking the podcast on a chiller route, which I appreciate for a change of pace.
Sounds great to me. I'm all about it. All about the chill.
All about the chill.
All about the chill. Always. Always.
Have you always been? You were
No.
never the, like, neurotic Jewy?
No, I definitely was the neurotic Jewy. Like, super type A, like, stereotypical. Way before I was a rabbi and stuff, I had, like, a social media business. It was, like, super type A, super OCD, super another person. And then that on overload, I think, is actually what led me to heal myself and become a rabbi and do all the things that I'm doing now.
Go from one end of the extreme to the other and then found your...
the center. And I think that's what life is, right? Like going from one extreme to the other and finding the like balance of it all.
The middle way.
Yeah. But like living in Hawaii, I feel like it's hard not to be chill. Like no, just like like genuinely, like it's just like weird. Like people are like, "What's wrong with you?" Like what? Like calm down. Like okay. And even for me, I feel like in the work I do from like with clients or even like services, I have to hold that space of being chill because so many people are up here right now with everything going on in our world. We have to ground and bring it down a little bit.
Change the pace.
Yeah, change the pace. Change the pace.
The overall.
Word. Yeah.
So speaking of change, I would love for you to share an intro to your change from social media and here's this route to, well, hold on, I'm gonna put something in a wall one day and the next day I'm going to rabbinical school.
It was like really, so I graduated college, 3 years, magna cum laude, like so good. Started my own internet marketing business, and this was back when like Facebook was a new thing. Like I was like pitching to these big corporations why they needed a Facebook page and like fighting with their marketing departments about why that was worth more than commercials. Like, and now that's crazy to us, but at the time that's what I was doing. So I actually set up some of the like original Facebook pages for some of the largest corporations in the country.
She says like quiet.
Just like very quietly, just quietly. But then it was not enjoyable. Like I felt really enslaved behind my phone and my device, and I had a crazy experience where I got into a car accident and then read The Power of Now and saw honestly like that I had been enslaved behind a phone, and I thought that like, I don't know, enslaved behind devices was going to be a thing, so I just like threw it all away. And then I was teaching jazzercise in San Diego.
Oh, you heard this part of this?
Oh yeah, I was teaching jazzercise in San Diego when I sprained my left ankle, and that's when I became paralyzed. Like my sympathetic nervous system, you have your fight or flight nervous system. My sympathetic and my parasympathetic nervous system like overflew. They were out of sync because I had been, I think, so go, go, go. That's why we talk about that. So young, right? Like never the yin. Most Jewish people, Jewish girls specifically aren't. That my
just like what? Trauma, upbringing,
generational,
norms,
family,
epigenetics.
Societal. I could go on and on. But like my ankle sprain, it told my brain told my left side of my body that it had been injured. So I was diagnosed with an incurable illness. So it's called chronic complex regional pain syndrome or reflex sympathetic dystrophy. So like the hair on my left side of my body stopped growing. My fingernails and my toenails stopped growing. My legs swelled up to like this big. I couldn't sit outside because like it felt like daggers going into my leg on the wind.
Just on one side?
Yeah, just on one side. And basically they told me that was going to be my life. I was in a wheelchair, and even that was difficult. I was in physical therapy doing the therapy that they did for phantom limb patients. Like literally it was like I now had a dead limb. And I was already doing healing work, like I had said, and kind of working on a book about my experience with the internet, where I really had written like, hello, my name is Rachel, I'm an internet addict. I think we're going to see a lot more people coming forward, and this is changing us as a people, and like, let's figure out how. And I was reading a lot of Louise Hay, and I remember just being like, oh, she like healed herself from cancer. I can heal myself from this. And I wrote on a piece of paper I deserve and choose to be 100% free of all pain by, and I wrote a date. And with like 2 months before that date, I was like walking and they were doing all these case studies on me in San Diego, and I was the like only person ever to like overcome this incurable illness. And I wrote a protocol that they still use like at San Diego State. Yeah. So my whole thing was, when I did that, I was like, there was a moment where I was like crying on the floor, paralyzed. I couldn't get up to go to the bathroom. And I said to God, I was like, if you let me get through this, I'll spend the rest of my life teaching other people this power, that like they have the power to heal themselves, that they have the power to do anything. And then I healed myself, and I feel like that was my like life's calling. And I was called to the Big Island to open a healing center and to teach people that. And I've actually had multiple success stories of people who came over with that illness and left able to walk, like people who were like worse off than I was, and it's all like yoga, meditation, essential oils, and Reiki and whatever. And then I was
super in the Eastern route.
Super, but like grounded in the diagnosis and understanding the like mental thought pattern of like, why did you receive this diagnosis? Like, I'm all about that, like the label, like, because you have to recognize the label in order to break through it, right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, and also that's still combining. I was just actually talking about this about a week ago of how to blend using Western medicine to diagnose and to label, and then focusing on
the Eastern way to do
treat.
it. Yeah.
And without denying, like, for example, if people need to take antidepressants,
right,
everyone needs to do what works for them.
Right.
And also still saying, okay, well, let's start, or let's
figure it out. Totally. Yeah, that's how it is. So that was what I did. I got the diagnosis and then healed myself, and then I became a yoga teacher and went on to like help teach yoga teacher trainings through Yondana, and was teaching paddleboard yoga, and I became a Reiki master teacher and was teaching Reiki trainings. When I actually went on birthright, like I went and wrote them like, hey, I was paralyzed, I missed my birthright trip, can I go? And they let me go. And like I was telling you earlier, we went to the Western Wall, and I was reading Carolyn May's Sacred Contracts at the time, and she talks all about how we have like a sacred contract with God before we come in, and like our entire life will be focused on fulfilling this mission, and it's how difficult or easy we choose. Back to the topic.
The choice seat, the second seat.
To make it for ourselves. Sorry, the other seat. But you
They're
know.
all connected.
And I wrote on a piece of paper, I want to fulfill my divine mission, and I put it in the Wailing Wall. And the next day I was like davening in my cousin's room in Jerusalem and enrolled to rabbinical school, or opening the first synagogue on the Big Island. It's hopefully going to be an intentional community puts and all that good stuff. And yeah, there it is. The long and short of it.
Did you enroll yourself online? Did you?
Yeah, I went to Jewish Spiritual Leaders Institute, which was based in New York City. So I was ordained by a Beit Din of 3 conservative male rabbis. It was like traditional conservative training.
And you're like, here is this very liberal female, and
like as liberal as it gets. Like my divrei, my sermons are like raps. Like they're like spoken word, like poetry stuff.
Yeah,
like,
you've done prose
like that's not my. I'm not our grandparents' Judaism. I don't think that's how we've survived as a people, is by evolving. Like we've always recognized the need to evolve, and we're at that same point. How can the divine feminine rise, the Shekinah rise, if we don't have strong female Jewish leaders and, you know, people waking up to that? I actually, funny story, Rabbi Schwartz, he's this huge rabbi in the Chabad movement. So Jewish. But he wears like tie-dyed tzitzit. He's huge in Chabad, super respected. In Israel, he was like, you should become a rabbi, and I've never told a female to become a rabbi. He was like, because I've never seen a woman strong enough to like actually take on that role. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So it was like him who gave him my blessing. And then after, even actually before I enrolled online, I begged. It was the legit, like, traditional Jewish, like, knock 4 times and then they'll let you in. I was the first female they ever let study at the Kabbalah Center in Sfat. So I studied with the head rabbi there, all about the like Sefirot, then all that stuff, and that just kind of began my journey in Israel. And then I came back and finished on Big Island, and it's been this pilgrimage. I think there's something really divine about Jews in Hawaii, and that the Hawaiians are actually one of the lost tribes, and
What?
A lot of that.
Whoa, I haven't heard about.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I could go on and on.
Whoa.
I have friends who showed me stuff that King Kamehameha wrote that he had a Torah and stuff. And yeah. I have a lot of actually Filipino and Portuguese people coming to me now finding out they're Jewish on 23andMe, because we think about the expulsion of Jews by Isabel and Ferdinand from Spain. So all the Portuguese and Filipino Jews and Spanish Jews were kicked out and never got their Jewish ancestry. So to me, there's something like super spiritual and sacred and big and biblical about Judaism in Hawaii. I've gone on the best tangent.
I love that. I mean, as a Jew sitting and getting to sit on this island right now, I totally am. I'm like, tell me
It's
more.
different, right?
This is
Yeah.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's a mind trip.
Well,
And you have to think about how, so aloha, ha is the breath of life. Shalom, om is our breath of life. The word for...
I love how rabbinical it is to go into words, and I love
sorry.
it. It's real.
It's the Hawaiian word for Hawaiian priest, everyone knows, is kahuna. The word for Jewish priest is kohena. I mean, they blow the conch shell, we blow the shofar. Like, there's a lot of those traditions. They're moon people. We worship blood moon, and we're a moon calendar. I mean, right now we're ending a month, I mean, so... Mm-hmm.
And you were talking before, when we were talking about the Tree of Life and before recording, about this concept that all of the different religions are telling the same story.
Yeah, like, my whole thing is, I think that, like, every religion, spiritual path, sacred teaching you read, like, they're all the same message. We're all climbing the same mountain. We're just taking different paths to get there. But yeah, if you like read about the Christian sacraments, the Hindu chakras, and then the Kabbalah stuff you wrote, they're all the same thing. All tribes have an initiation process at the root. We have like an opening creative process where we become a part of the community. Then we have an empowerment process where we find ourselves as individuals within that space. And then we move up into the place of like love and goodness, where we start to recognize that. Then we start to use our voice and our throat, and we realize that we're, independent and able to speak and question. And then we move up to a place of truth and knowledge and up into God. And if you look at all those spiritual teachings, they all take you through that rainbow through the body.
Seeing what changes and what doesn't change.
Yeah.
Both between them and on that.
Yeah.
As you scan or as
well,
you're
it's just
like...
interesting to see how they change, but they don't. Like, everything's the same.
Yeah, well, and about watching how it changes, maybe seeing how the energy, for lack of a better word there, shifts.
Totally.
That will be set as a framework.
Yeah.
So like act like we know what's going on, or like we understand.
Right. It's good.
Ooh, okay, I'd like to ground a little more too.
Please.
In right now and everything going on in the global economy and the global societal talking about change and talking about history
about a revolution
and talking about
Can you hear it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and this idea of people talking so often about learning from history, about noticing how history goes in cycles and changes. It's all a circle and and
spiral.
Also
It's a spiral. Every person I've ever dealt with, I deal with a lot of people before they pass. They all have spoken to me about spirals.
Yep.
Everything's a spiral. But yeah.
Because you come around the same thing again in a different,
and
slightly different
happening.
way.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a little more in terms of, because we can't change history, we can't go back and change it.
Yes.
We can learn from it. We can maybe change how we talk about it, or change how openly we talk about it too. I feel like that's
the
something.
Comfort level. Yeah.
I feel like that's a big learning that's happening right now is people.
Yeah, that's the communication is a huge part of it. Change. This is a huge change. Like, we're in a time of massive political, socio-economic, healthcare, like it change in terms of our world. And for me, as like a rabbi, and just even as a spiritual being in a human body, having an experience, when I like step back and look out of it, like look down at the world and from a bird's eye lens, you're like, oh my gosh, this is really crazy. Like, and we want to think we've changed, but we haven't that much. And I keep saying to people, if you wonder what you would have been doing during the Holocaust or the Civil Rights Movement or any of these things, we're doing it right now. Like, this is what I think people don't understand, is history is written by us. Like, what we read in the history books, we're writing right now. So how do we want that story to go? And when we look back, have we changed that much? Have we grown that much? Like, have we evolved that much? And are we willing to have the uncomfortable conversations with ourselves, right? To say, okay, where am I in this? Like, where am I in the world right now? What am I doing? What am I contributing? Who am I? What is this?
Totally. What changes am I making in my personal life? And
how am I being the change? To me, it's in Judaism, tikkun olam, right? Healing the world. We, as Jews, know that we were put into a broken world. There's none of this is good, like, you guys are here, this is heaven on earth. Judaism is like, no, this shit's broken.
Jews are like, all right.
This stuff is broken. Like, but that's okay. Like, I gave you a reason to be here. I need your help to fix it. And then we have 613 commandments or mitzvot of ways that we can do that. You know what I mean? And that's genuinely what that means. I think about this. If we want to wonder why we are where we are, God, I believe in contracts, like, wholeheartedly. I believe in, like, we enter into contracts with ourselves and other people in our word. I believe in, like, business contracts, relationship contracts. And the thing about contracts is they can always be renegotiated. Like, I think we enter into contracts with ourselves. It's the reality. Contracts can be renegotiated.
I'm laughing more at Jewish stereotypes that I love and support and often embody.
But, like,
contracts can't be renegotiated.
Even if you have a contract with God,
changes.
It changes. It changes. Things change, so contracts have to be renegotiated. And part of it is recognizing, are we fulfilling the contract? How's it going right now? Are we doing what we're meant to be doing? Like, how are we a part of the change? Because I think we're being called to be the change. Back to the contract thing.
And the contract
The 10
is
Commandments were a contract. That was the first contract that we as a people, Jewish or not, ever received. 10 simple rules. Like, literally, think if you were in a preschool classroom, you'd be like, it's 10 things, guys. This is 10 things. The world does not follow that. We still murder, we still adulter, we still, kill, steal, like, all of it. And I feel like God's like, why am I going to uphold my end of the deal if you guys aren't going to uphold yours?
I only gave 10 things.
I only gave 10 simple things, and, like, the most Jewish mother thing in the world. Literally 10 rules. You can't follow these 10 simple rules. What do you expect from me? Why am I expected to uphold my end of the agreement? Because we got the rainbow, the sign that, like, we're always going to be okay and everything's going to be supported, but, like...
What do you mean the rainbow?
God sent the rainbow in the sky as the sign after the Great Flood, the Big Bang, whatever it was, to Noah, to say, I've always got you. So whenever we see a rainbow, it's like, hey, things can get dark, they can get cloudy, like, you could get flooded, but I'm up here, I've got you, and this is the reflection of, at least for me, it's like, that's a reflection of who you are. Like, this is your energy center, that's my energy center, like, we are that rainbow embodiment. The Sephirot, their
Colors,
rainbow, the chakras, all of it. I mean, again, the rainbow. So, but that's a contract. God didn't adjust that contract. God was like, I'll be there for you, but you have to do this. I mean, even in the Torah, he's like, hey, this dude's going to come out, he's going to be really cool, he's going to claim to be the Messiah, don't go for it. Like, that's there. It was like, don't fall for it. And I love Jesus. He's my homie. Like,
I love literal descriptions
so good.
of it.
But it's just the reality.
My
So,
homie.
he's my homie. I had that shirt in high school before I was a rabbi. Jesus is my homeboy.
Ooh.
And I used to rock it all the time just because I thought it was funny as a Jew. He is my
Things
homie.
change and don't change that much again. Like,
No,
you were already...
they really don't. Someone said that to me the other day. I just turned 33, and I guess that's the, like, Jesus years. It's interesting.
33.
And I've had
Ooh,
kind
and
of
three
a
and
weird...
change in the triangle.
The threes. Yeah, there's
You've had a
lot
weird
of
what?
Jesus connection. Like, and a lot of rabbis are really uncomfortable with the Jesus thing. I'm not uncomfortable
Because you're
with
supposed
that.
to, like...
We're supposed to, like, write off Jesus, and to me, like, I'm gonna probably get the book thrown at me, but,
Oh my
like,
God,
I think Jesus was the first Reformed rabbi. I mean, he was a Jew.
He was a Jew.
He was a
not white
rabbi.
Jew.
He was preaching, like, the Via Hafta and, like, love your neighbor as yourself and, like, the legit, like, reality. And here's the other thing. He was definitely married to Mary Magdalene, because if you were a rabbi at the time, you had to be married. That was, like, a part of it. So I feel like there's a lot of the Jesus got a bad rap. And he's sitting there being like, wait, no. Like, I didn't want you to start something else after me. I was just like preaching Judaism in a way that hopefully more people could relate to.
Whoa.
And it created like a lot of division and separation that like was totally
Then became
unintended.
Christianity?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And you're saying maybe that wasn't ever Jesus' intention? This is a
can't
cool thing to talk about.
I
can
can't
neither confirm nor deny.
I can't speak for Jesus, but I can't think that the dude who talked about love your neighbor as yourself and was healing people with his hands and giving them Reiki, and like the Jesus I read about, and even Mary Magdalene I read about, would be okay with the things people do in the name of Jesus and Christianity now. You know, you grew up in St. Louis, I grew up in Kansas City, I was in the evangelical Bible Belt. Like, I grew up with a lot of anti-Semitism from the evangelical Christian right, telling me that I was going to hell because I was Jewish, and a lot of that stuff. So I have a very, like, I love you, I understand you, like, we can all get along, but, like, the proselytizing, forcing thing, Jesus wasn't even about that.
No,
Yeah.
Jews aren't going out on Jewish missionary trips.
No.
Not that I've heard of.
No, it's not a thing. We don't proselytize. And if you hear a Jew proselytize, they're a Jew for Jesus, which is really just a Christian in disguise.
Yeah,
They take you to Shabbat dinner. Yeah. That's usually what they do.
What are your thoughts on the overlap between Reform, especially Reform Judaism, and what I'm going to deem hippieism and sustainability? Like you're talking about the Hawaii Jewish connection.
Yeah.
Where is this overlap, and also where is this overlap too between, and maybe also we can see this in, and it's just that we aren't as versed in it being Jewish, in sects of Christianity and sects of Islam and in sects of all of these religions where people are changing potentially. How do we see the common thread? How do we see that we're all talking about the golden rule? That we're all saying we've just changed from the same seedling.
I think more people are starting to see that. Like hippie, I think more people
or just love
are starting to see that. In Judaism, I feel, I joke that it was probably one of the last conferences on earth, but it might have been. The first week in March, I was in New York. I was invited to Knesset, which is this Jewish leaders consultation where they invite like 50 innovative Jewish leaders around the world, or maybe there were 20 of us. I was invited to go. It was amazing. There were a bunch of people there networking, but there were farmers and agriculture people and a lot more.
Which is so much Jewish law.
Which makes me really happy. I was in a room with people who were all doing Judaism differently. And then the like older leaders of Judaism, including like the Jewish Federations of North America and a lot of the like big hitters who were saying, we recognize we need to change. We know that we need you. We know that we need you as innovators. We know that we need to do things differently. Otherwise, we're not going to move forward. And I think that's the commonalities. I have one of my best friends is a priest, is a reverend. She's an Episcopal priest. Actually, the church like right there, right down the street from you.
You can't see it.
You can't see it, but it's right there.
We can see it.
We can see it. There's a church right there. It's my friend's church. But she and I talk about this all the time, that love's the common thread. And I have a lot of friends. I'm really active in our interfaith communities in action here. So the man who runs the Muslim Society of Hawaii and all that stuff. And we talk often about love being the common thread. And to me right now, the podcast I just recorded before I came here, funny enough, Rapping with Rabbi Rachel.
Check it out on all the podcasting platforms.
I was talking about we have to choose love over fear. Like, that's the choice we're being given right now. Like, every person everywhere is being called at every moment to choose, right? To change, to evolve, to whatever, love or fear. Like, it's that simple right now. It's that when we read back in every book, when we read the Torah, the Tanakh, the Talmud, when we read even the Zohar, when we read even the Quran or the New Testament and things, because I like to be educated in everything, the essence is love. Like, don't be a jerk, and like love people. And they all have the 10 Commandments. I mean, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism are all Abrahamic religions, right? So we're all technically, I mean, we can't even, I could go on and on about like the reality of the Muslim Jewish thing is literally just ancestral trauma and like family drama that never got solved.
Of the what thing?
Abraham and Sarah couldn't have a baby, okay?
Okay.
Abraham was like 100 and Sarah's like 99, and this is according to the Torah, so they're probably like 40s and 50s. Like,
okay.
I don't know, that's just my thought. I don't know what math they were using back then, so I don't know how seriously I take their numbers, but we'll go with 100. When Sarah was like, hey, I know you really want a son. You should go and have a son with our maid, Hagar. And he was like, okay. And he went and knocked up Hagar, their maid. And then Sarah got pregnant. And they threw Hagar out and outcast her. And she had a son that became the bloodline of the Prophet Muhammad. So basically, that entire thing is, he's mad at his dad. Like, we outcast this family. And they've constantly, like, that's deep. 5,781 years ago deep. And if you think about the reality of ancestral trauma and generational trauma, and you read that story, like, if nothing was ever done to heal that in that family, we've become a family on this planet with that healing still needing to be done within us.
The thing still needs to be talked about.
The thing still needs to be talked about.
It's still there.
And that's the thing, I think people think that if we don't talk about it, it's going to go away. It's like, no, things are still going to be there even if we don't talk about them. Even the discomfort we're all going through as our world. You and I were talking about the Holocaust and like similarities and stuff. People don't want to look at that because it makes them uncomfortable. But we really need to be in that discomfort or things are not going to be good.
Hey, you're good. Yeah. Well, how does that connect to you too with what you were saying about changing the programming, the conditioning of choosing love or choosing how are we acting? What is the...
I think that's it. I think it's being the change at every moment with your thoughts, your actions, your words, your thoughts. That's a big one. How you treat other people. Like, we all make little choices on a regular basis. Every moment. When I pick up my phone, is it because I have FOMO, or is it because I love what I'm looking at? Like, reality. Just like look at the small things we do from love over fear. Because I think that's the God power is recognizing which place are you in, right? Like, that's been the reality since time. That's what Moses did.
So what does that mean in terms of part of my over-perfectionist or my over-extremist black and white mind wants to say, well, that I've done this, and like, well, I can never act out of fear. When I can be like, fear is bad, I'm gonna fear. And
No.
not talking about it.
I think it's that. I think it's acknowledging the fear. Like that, it's we don't want to acknowledge that there's fear. In choosing love over fear, you have to acknowledge that fear is present. Right? You can't make a choice. Fear. You have to make it. You can't make a choice without acknowledging there's a choice to make. Right? So in that moment, to me, that's where your power is. When I healed myself, that was the choice I made. Like, oh, if I got myself into this, I could get myself out of it. And in that moment, everything changed.
You changed your story.
You change your story. You change your story, you change your life.
Did it really feel like that?
Yes.
Literal snap?
Yes, and it literally feels like a different life. Even in my life now, going through big changes personally, like, literally it feels like you go through layers of like becoming a new person on the spiritual journey. The spiral. My grandfather talked to me about it before he passed, and every person I've ever worked with in hospice, every single one of them talks to me about spirals. So there's something to be said for that. Because they're in that realm, they're in that God realm. They're in and out. I mean, death, that's something people don't even want to talk about. Everyone's uncomfortable talking about death.
The ultimate life change is that then life is death.
Like, but the inevitable is the truth that none of us are getting out alive. Like, hello, we're all born, we all die. And
we
to
all
me,
need basic resources while we're here.
Well, and to me, when we bring awareness to death, we can choose life. Where it's like, oh, cool, like, I'm not in the ground right now, like, I'm out, like, I could, like, I'm here, you're there, like, clinky, like, l'chaim, it's a good thing. So we can choose to, like, live a little more. Yeah.
And again, from love rather than fear, and acknowledging too the fear of like, oh, whoa, I'm not going to be here one day, and also then that means I'm here right now.
But I think that like that's the realization is that your choices and your actions have that much of an impact that even when you are gone, who you are will leave an imprint on the world, like spiritually, physically, emotionally, with other people, within like this, even our air. Like you and I are breathing the same air that Joan of Arc and Jesus Christ and Moses and Muhammad and Buddha breathed, like that's just how it works. So I think it comes again to choice and action. What type of legacy do you want to leave? Like, we are at every moment writing our story. How do we want it to sound?
Yeah.
What does it say? Do you want to be the heroine, or do you want to be the victim, or what does that look like? Because you're consciously choosing what that looks like.
And are you going to change it or are you not? And
Yeah.
are you going to acknowledge, oh, I'm in the writing of history right now?
Yes.
Or are you going to say, oh, I'm going to go into this or that programming mentality of,
it'll be
I have
okay,
no
it doesn't
power.
involve me.
Ooh, that one too.
Yeah. Everything's okay, like it's not that bad, we'll get through it. I don't.
Someone else has it worse.
Someone else has it worse, that's the great one. Yeah, undermining your own feelings and self-worth in that way is it really happens a lot.
That sounds like that was sort of the snap of change, which I'm learning in my healing of with tendonitis, tendinosis, so
I'll help you with that.
shifting that, yeah.
Well, shifting that belief of like I need someone to help me, and like this is what I told God I would do, teach you the power that like no, I've got this. Like I can legit do anything I set my mind to. Moses, that was what Moses did when he parted the sea, was manifest. Like the manna that fell from heaven was the words I am and the ability to manifest. Like that's my calling as a rabbi, is not to necessarily teach people to read Torah for their bar mitzvahs, but really to link us back to that spiritual part of Judaism and our ancestral stories and the wisdom that was there that's been convoluted by patriarchy and laws and rules for way too long, so that like the Shekinah, like the divine feminine, the creative aspect of Judaism is trying to rise.
To say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
These both belong here.
When I was in New York,
This is all real.
It's all real. I had the pleasure of going to Romamu, which is this like huge synagogue. They've got hundreds of people at their services on Friday night. They did pre-COVID, but they play drums and everything. They're in-house artists, because like fancy schmancy New York Brooklyn synagogue. She was rewriting the Torah, regendered, meaning every male was a female. Every male was a female. So Eve had taken the bone from Adam and all these things, and her whole thing, and listening to her talk, she was like, how can it be even until it's been redone? It was written one way. Until it's rewritten the other way, how is it equal? And it's just like, woo!
And
Yeah.
not discrediting the other one,
Not
saying
discrediting.
both exist.
And I did that right before COVID. I was starting to say that was, I joke it was on the last conferences on Earth, but I was in New York the last week of March, or the first week of March, right before the virus really hit, for the Knesset leadership consultation and visiting all these synagogues. So it was kind of like I again had this like spiritual blast before all this started.
Whoa.
It's weird.
Whoa, it's there. I see that too as a theme of things that change and stay the same, is that religion isn't going anywhere, spirituality isn't going anywhere. It maybe shifts forms, it comes, different things come in and out, and also that...
But this is where a lot of rabbis will get really frustrated with me. I don't view Judaism as a religion.
What do you view it as? A spirituality?
A culture.
Cool.
I view it like the Hawaiians. I view it like the Native Americans, like any indigenous spiritual culture tradition. Because to me, religion came after Judaism. Like Judaism was a thing, and then Christianity came, and then and then Islam came, and then everything broke off. Like the essence of Judaism is Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
You're making that because I haven't
I got it. But oneness, right? Like, I don't think we were ever meant to break off from the one. So...
And then religion was just this way of, like, making boxes for the different... Interesting.
I think a way of enslavement.
Say more on that.
It's written in the Torah that we were going to continue to be as slaves and people of the diaspora and all these things until things changed and we figured things out. Tikkun Olam, healing the world, until we did enough acts of loving kindness. And it's not an easy thing to be a Jew. I always jokingly say to people, if you choose to be a Jew, there's a reason for it. It's not easy. Anti-Semitism's hard. I mean, as a culture, it's hard. There's a lot of stereotypes right now. I mean, there were like 30-something anti-Semitic attacks in August alone in America, and people aren't talking about them. Like a Chabad was lit on fire, 3 of them. There were multiple bomb threats and all these things. But the other thing I think is we see more people converting to Judaism, or more people connect to Judaism, because there were a lot of Jewish souls lost during the Holocaust that didn't have Jewish bodies to come back in.
I do really love the parts of Judaism about questioning.
Oh yeah.
About
That's like what being a rabbi is. You're legit just supposed to sit around and argue and question everything. And that's where I think I have the biggest issue as a rabbi with everything right now is like critical thinking is something that we as Jews have like always valued and encouraged is now being like confused with conspiracy theorists, and I don't see it that way. I believe that we should question everything. I question my feelings, I question my thoughts. I mean, I can be crazy in my head, like I can be insanely creatively negative. I have to question that. I mean, is that really happening, or is that a fact? You know, that's why you got to come back to the facts and change it. You can always change the story, change the tune, change history. That, I think, to me is the biggest thing, is people don't realize that they're at the point where we can change history. Like, if we don't like the way things look, and we don't like the way things are going or the way they've been written, then change it. You have that power. We're not this, like, wishy-washy little fish being brushed around by the ocean of God. We were given free will. Our Torah portion a few weeks ago, God says, here, take the red pill or the blue pill. It's up to you. You have free will. You want the blessing or the curse? It's up to you. I mean, we're not this people of like, oh gosh, I'll just say, you know, a Hail Mary and be okay. No, it's not that way. If you make a bad choice, you suffer for that choice and you figure out why, and hopefully you don't make it again. Carolyn Mace talks about that actually in Sacred Contracts, that like everyone has a contract before they come in. I wrote about mine and becoming a rabbi, and there's also more to the rabbi story of me. It was actually a crystal that told me to become a rabbi.
What kind of crystal?
So my buddy Sharon at the Kilo Farmers Market. I just had to like back up for the story. My buddy Sharon at the Hilo Farmers Market. I would get stones from her for my Reiki healings and my crystal therapy and everything and my clients. And she found out I was going to Israel. And she was like, can you do something for me? And I was like, what? And she was like, I need you to take something back. And I was like, to Israel? That's really weird. And long story short, she like took a rock from Masada, the top of Masada, which is where the Jews and the Romans had one of their final fights, and actually a bunch of Jews took their lives because they'd rather die than be enslaved to the Romans, and it's a huge, weird part of history. But she was like, I took this rock, it needs to go home, can you take it for me? And I was like, that's a weird thing to ask. I wasn't planning to, and then the day before I was at the market and just walked over and she gave me the rock. And the day before I had gone to the Western Wall, and we hiked to the top of Masada at sunrise. And I closed my eyes when I got up to the top, and this rock legit like started telling me where to go. Like legit was like telling me like go over here, put me down. And I sat down and meditated, and all of a sudden I just like started crying hysterically. Like the amount of like ancestral trauma, generational trauma, and like the reality of like what the people I had come from had been through, and like what was in my genes and my blood, and like feeling that like my ancestors had stood here and fought, and I really can't put it into words. I was just like overcome with emotion. And my friend, whose mom was a rabbi, funny enough, came and sat down next to me, and I'm like hysterically crying, just like meditating, and like put her hand on my leg and didn't say anything. And I turned to her and was like, I think I'm supposed to become a rabbi. And she was like, you should definitely do that. And then I went online and found a school that night. And then I had someone take a photo of me in that spot. And Sharon said that was the exact spot she took the rock from. She showed me a photo and it was the exact same location. Yeah. They got like chicken
Things change and
skin
things don't
goosebumps
change.
all over. Things change and they don't change. It's the spiral.
The rock went back to the same place.
The rock went back to the same place, but look at the journey like it went on together.
Okay, so something I think about with the spiral to close out here is the spiral spiraling inward or outward or both? That's where I land with it.
Both. Always both.
Always.
Energy goes in, energy goes out. Like we're creatures of that. It's interesting because when I do like Reiki work, I can see the energy centers spinning.
Whoa.
And they spin one direction when they're good and another direction when they're like off.
Whoa.
Whoa. It's just interesting, but I think both. Energy has to come in and has to go out. Everything's an entrance exit. If not, that's scary. If there's no way out or no way in, then what's the...
No birth, no death, it's all...
No, I think it's all birth and death.
Ooh.
It's all birth and death. I saw this from, and I don't know, were you here when the lava flowed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mean, that's birth and death right there. Like destruction and creation. Like that's the Garden of Eden. That's God in action. Like it's everything to me is destruction and creation. There's no life without death. There's no death without life. It's the reality. And as someone who's given birth, I will talk, and I work a lot with like postpartum, and the reality that no one talks about postpartum and postpartum depression is grief. That birth is so closely related to death. No one talks about that because there's a death of your old self. There's a death of your old life. There's this birth of a child. There's this birth of becoming a mother. But there is also this it's birth and death, and we don't talk about these endings and beginnings. But everything's out and in. Everything's out and in and spiraling around. Thanks for having me, Annie.
Yeah.
This was great.
Yeah, using that spiral to go in our lives, to observe the change, to
go
surf
with the
through
change,
it,
to be the change. I think that's the most important thing right now, to be the change. We, as individuals, are way more powerful than we realize, and it's actively being the change. What does that look like? What is action? What is action? What is being? Is that meditating? Is that, you know what I mean?
That we're creating history through our choices.
Totally.
That we're changing.
Through your mere existence, you're writing history. That's how powerful you are.
And remembering again that yes and between, we're here, we're just specks, we're just in this little bit
No,
of time, and also
no.
we're here, we somehow got to be here.
I
with
think
all
we
the
all chose
statistics
to
and-
be here. Like, why else would we be here
Like,
right
no,
now? No, we all chose it. Every single one of us actively chose to be here right now for COVID, for the 11th plague, for all of it. We all chose it for whatever reason. And we're coming up on the year 5781. I mean, and to me, I think in spiritual terms, we talk about the Messiah coming or the Mashiach coming or there being a new age of consciousness or whatever's going to happen in the year 7000. 5781 is not that far off. Like if you think of things from like a real big spiritual perspective, 5,000 years out of 7,000 is not that much. Not that much. We're almost there. Something's going down. Something's going down.
And we get to just observe this little part of history.
I'm okay with it. We chose to be here.
We chose to
It's
be
great.
here.
It's great.
And we can change our perspective to celebrate that.
Yeah.
To remember we did choose this, so
And that we chose to be here for a reason, so we need to like use that power that we've been given.
Be the change or be changed.
Be the change or be changed. Yeah.
Change is gonna happen.
Change is gonna happen. The only thing constant in life is change.
My first tattoo for this. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, triangle.
The only thing constant in life is change. That was the first quote I actually ever remember a rabbi saying to me.
And we're full circle.
And we're full circle, full spiral, Andy.
Full spiral.
Full spiral.
Full spiral. We're back in again. The change and none of the change.
I love it.
So people can find you at Rabbi Rachel Short.
Yes.
They can find you also, you have another Instagram.
Yes, Rabbi Rachel Short is my like personal one, and then I have a nonprofit, Ahava Aina. Ahava is love in Hebrew, Ahava. Aina, which is land in Hawaiian, so it's literally love land, Aina. Then I have a website, rabbirachelshort.com. My podcast, Rapping with Rabbi Rachel. I can't wait to have you as a guest on.
And I'll put all this in the description box.
Yeah,
Link
yeah,
there.
please. And if you're in Hilo, I teach yoga and all that good stuff. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank
This
you
was
so
so
much.
good. Love
Thank
you.
I love you.
So good. Mwah. I'm holding tea
I
awkwardly.
love it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And
Yeah,
thank you
shaloha.
for being you. Shaloha.
Woo!
Woo!
Thanks, Annie. How was it?
So good.
Oh no. Oh no. Hang